Welcome. Tonight, we travel to the distant highlands of East Africa, to the ancient and often forgotten kingdom of Axum. Imagine yourself among the stone stelae and quiet hills of what is now northern Ethiopia and Eritrea, in a time long before colonial maps or modern borders. The air is warm, dry, and still. The hum of insects rises with the evening breeze. There are no clocks ticking, no city lights glowing, only the soft rhythm of a world that moved with the sun and the seasons. This kingdom, though little spoken of today, once stood among the greatest empires of its age. Roman merchants wrote of its trade. Byzantine emperors exchanged letters with its kings. It was a place of incense, gold, carved obelisks, and sacred relics. But it was also a place of labor, long journeys through desert heat, and lives carried out in the silence between empires. Tonight, we will step quietly into the rhythm of those lives. Through the eyes of a traveling merchant, a legendary queen, a sacred mystery, and the rituals of royal elites, you will come to know this ancient kingdom, not as a line in a textbook, but as a place of breath, sweat, ink, and prayer. Let us begin. Imagine yourself waking before dawn. The sky is still dark, painted faintly with the orange promise of sunrise over the Semine Mountains. You are a merchant of Axum, not a prince or warrior, but one of countless souls whose days are ruled by trade winds and dusty roads. Your goods are modest but valuable, fragrant frankincense, honey, ivory, and salt. Rolled tightly into your leather pack are bolts of cotton from India and delicate glass beads from the eastern shores. Your caravan is small today, to camels, a donkey, and your younger cousin, still learning the routes. The first task of the morning is always silence, not prayer, not food, just silence. A moment to listen, to the wind, to the feet of animals on stone, to the warning sounds of far-off hyenas. It is said in Axum that merchants must listen to the road before speaking to the gods. As the day unfolds, the sun climbs higher, and the road becomes a challenge. The terrain is not flat. You traverse winding escarpments, crossing dried riverbeds where crocodiles once bathed. Your mouth grows dry. You drink slowly, sparingly, always aware of how far the next well lies. In the distance, stelae rise like teeth from the earth. These obelisks mark burial places, silent reminders of the kings who once ruled and the stoneworkers who shaped their memory. You pass them without pause, though your cousin glances nervously. It's said some spirits follow travelers from the stones to the city. By midday, your caravan reaches a small trade outpost. The shade is a blessing. You sit beneath a fig tree and share lentils with a man from the southern coast. He speaks of distant ports in Arabia, of spices and pearls. You barter gently, for he is tired too. The deal is struck, not with sharp words, but with mutual nods, each of you understanding the quiet code of the road. At night, you reach Axum. The city is not loud, not bustling like Rome or Alexandria. It hums, low and slow, the tap of sandals on stone, the whisper of incense smoke, the distant chants from a stone church. You unload your wares, greet your old mother with a nod, and eat bread soaked in spice stew by oil lamplight. Tomorrow, you will begin again. This is the rhythm of your life. Not grand, not easy, but ancient and enduring. Now, imagine, centuries have passed. The golden glow of Axum's prime has faded into a quieter dusk. Trade routes have shifted. Stone monuments stand weathered. And out of the mists of the highlands comes a name whispered with reverence, fear, and awe. Yodit, also known in legend as Yodit or Judith, this queen's story is shrouded in both reverence and shadow. We do not know exactly who she was, but we know that she left a mark. You find yourself in a quiet stone village north of Axum. The year is uncertain, perhaps the 10th century. The people speak of a woman born into nobility, but outside the established power. Some say she was of the Beta Israel, the Jewish community in Ethiopia. Others claim she was raised in the Christian faith before turning away in fury. Imagine Yodit as a young girl, watching her father's land seized, her people marginalized, her family silenced by edicts from Axumite kings. She learned early to listen without reacting, to plan while others dismissed her. When the time came, she gathered warriors from the mountains, promised them vengeance, land, and justice. Or, depending on who tells the tale, simply chaos and fire. Her campaign was swift, methodical, and terrifying. Step into her tent. A map lies open, inked by moonlight. She speaks softly to her captains. No need to raise her voice. Her authority is woven into the silence she commands. Her eyes do not blink when speaking of temples to burn or kings to dethrone. Whether she saw herself as a liberator or a conqueror is lost to time. In Axum, fires lit the horizon. Churches that had stood for centuries were sacked. Nobles fled. The royal line was broken. A queen, a woman, now ruled where generations of kings had reigned. Imagine the capital subdued under her rule. Life resumed, bread was still baked, animals still tended. But there was a tension in the air. Every whisper was cautious, every gaze measured. Her court was austere, no golden banquets or lavish processions. Her rule was not about opulence, but permanence. Power once taken had to be made to last. And then she vanished. Perhaps she died in battle, or in her bed, or wandered into legend, like so many rulers whose stories blend with the land they once shaped. All that remains are fragments, oral histories passed down in whispers, monastic chronicles penned with hesitation, and ruins that may or may not bear her signature. Some call her a villain, others, a queen of justice. All agree. She changed everything. As we leave her story, the wind rises over the highlands once more. The fires she lit may have cooled, but the silence she left behind still echoes. Now, let your mind drift toward the hilltops of Axum, where silence rests like incense on the wind, and mystery lingers in the stone. For centuries, there has been a whisper, a tale that crosses continents and faiths, that the Ark of the Covenant, the sacred chest said to contain the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments, does not rest in Jerusalem or a lost desert cave, but here, in Axum, within a simple church, guarded day and night by a single, silent monk. Imagine the stone path winding up to the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion, flanked by cypress trees and quiet watchers. Pilgrims arrive barefoot, heads bowed, pressing fingers to lips in reverence. The gates remain closed, and behind them, within a modest chapel of worn white walls and faded paint, lies something very old, or perhaps nothing at all. The guardian of the ark does not speak. He sees no one, his only task to guard, until death, what lies within. We cannot say what's truly inside. No outsider has laid eyes upon it, but the belief alone passed down through generations has shaped the spiritual identity of Axum and Ethiopia itself. Let's step back gently and look at the wider picture. Axum's sacred churches, carved into mountains or built of volcanic tuff, are architectural wonders. Some, like Deber Damo, are reachable only by rope. Others, like Lalibela, a later creation inspired by Axumite traditions, were chiseled from living rock, appearing like inverted temples sunk into the earth. In these sacred places, priests move slowly through incense-filled corridors, chanting scriptures in Jayas, an ancient liturgical language preserved in these hills. Candles flicker against damp stone. Pages of illuminated manuscripts turn softly, their ink saints, staring with wide, eternal eyes. There is a calm here, a deep, grounded stillness born of centuries of quiet ritual. Imagine being a young monk, rising before dawn, hands cold on the stone floor, preparing the scrolls, sweeping the floor, lighting the first flame of the morning. This rhythm is unbroken by time, and above it all floats the legend of the ark, not just as an object, but as a symbol of connection, of sacred continuity, of divine presence housed in humble walls. Whether the ark rests in Axum or not, the belief is as real as any artifact. The people who worship here do not need proof. The sacred is in the silence, in the stone, in the steps of the barefoot faithful. As the sun sets behind the Tigray highlands, the last hymn fades, and the guardian remains alone, unwavering, a living mystery. Next, we'll cross from the sacred into the sumptuous, exploring the world of Axum's nobles in. Now, as the mountain air cools and the fires in distant hearts begin to glow, let us gently ascend into the upper echelons of Axumite society, into the royal courts and noble households where linen robes brushed polished stone and golden platters reflected the torchlight. The Axumite elite lived lives far removed from the dusty roads of the merchants and the solemn shadows of the monks. Here, behind high stone walls and cedar doors, daily life unfolded with ceremony and quiet grandeur. Imagine a royal banquet in the palace of King Caleb or one of his successors. The guests would enter slowly, stepping onto rugs woven in Egyptian style, beneath beams carved with lion motifs. Incense from southern Arabia curled through the room, frankincense, myrrh, and rare gums traded from as far as India. Servants in white tunics moved gracefully, offering steamed grains, honeyed flatbreads, and roasted meats flavored with garlic and wild herbs. Berber spice, though not yet in its modern form, existed in ancestor blends, adding a gentle heat to dishes. Clay jars of mead and early tej passed from hand to hand. Quiet murmurs in jayas, the language of church and court, filled the air like music. But eating was not only indulgence. For the elite, it was ritual, display, and sometimes diplomacy. Feasts welcomed foreign emissaries, perhaps traders from Byzantium, bearing silk and silver, or envoys from the Arabian Peninsula bringing camels and copper. The royal household also engaged in ritual purification. Before ceremonies, nobles might bathe with perfumed water and anoint their hands with fragrant oils. Jewelry of hammered gold, bracelets, pectorals, and earrings adorned both men and women. These were not just decorations, but signs of divine favor and social order. And when matters turned spiritual, the palace's private chapels hosted solemn rituals led by royal priests. The Axumite kings were Christian monarchs, among the earliest in the world. Their Christianity was deeply rooted, yet distinctly Ethiopian, blending biblical tradition with local cosmology and earlier Judaic customs that had lingered in the highlands. Imagine the king himself kneeling on embroidered cloth before a stone altar, flanked by priests swinging bronze censers. No shouting, no grand gestures, just quiet devotion, underlined by the belief that his authority flowed not from power alone, but from divine will. In times of war, the same king might don iron-scale armor, mount a horse or elephant, and lead campaigns. Yet in times of peace, he sat beneath a painted parasol, sipping fermented honey, listening to poets recite tales of ancestors and stars. And now, as we leave the Axumite palace behind and return to the calm of our own evening, we reflect on the dualities of this forgotten kingdom: trade and faith, grandeur and humility, legend and reality. As the lamps dim and silence gathers around you, let your thoughts drift through the slow rhythm of Axum's forgotten grandeur. The clinking of coins in a market square, the creak of ox carts along the Red Sea Road, the whisper of prayer in a mountain church, these sounds echo still if you listen quietly. Axum did not vanish. It faded. Like many ancient powers, it left behind stones and stories, and a people who still remember. Tonight, as you rest, let the memory of this ancient place carry you gently towards sleep, where time folds softly, and even kingdoms thought lost may return, if only in dreams.